Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I am your Hobgoblin host Hunter, and this is Hobby Goblin Studios. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. This week we have an absolutely massive project. I found this monstrous Smaug model from GW on eBay, and it was going for a pretty great deal since it was missing the base, so I jumped on it immediately. But now I actually have to put it together, and that's a little bit intimidating. So this week we're going to be going over everything you need to know about assembling large resin models. And if you want to see me paint this thing, tune in on Monday to the channel where I'll be live streaming the painting process. Last Monday we went over priming and base coating, and then Smaug started to get a little bit too unwieldy to continue. So come hang out and chat this Monday and place your bets for how far we get before Smaug gets too heavy and my arm starts cramping up. So the first step is to make sure that all of our pieces are here. Obviously, I got mine from eBay, and the listing specified it was missing the base. However, even if you get your stuff directly from the manufacturer, it's not uncommon for GW or whoever else you're purchasing your miniature from to forget a couple of pieces when they're boxing everything up. In that case, you can usually call customer service and have them send you whatever you don't have. Obviously, in my case, customer service is out of the question, but it's nice to know that I may or may not have to sculpt something ahead of time. Luckily, everything except for the base was here. Once we know that everything is here, then we have to remove all of the supports and flashing. Flashing is any sort of resin that isn't supposed to be there that is there. This oftentimes results in mold lines, or occasionally in little holes. There'll be chunks of resin that will prevent your pin from going in. This is easily removed by either scraping it away with an X-Acto knife or filing it down with a file. For the supports, most of them, the smaller ones, can just be clipped away with a pair of clippers, just like you would with a plastic model taking it off of a sprue. However, some of these supports are pretty friggin' massive. So we have to be a little bit careful, because if we just clip them off, we could break our clippers or even damage our model if we're not careful. A lot of people will often take a hobby saw and saw the model away from the support before they get started. I couldn't find mine, so we're just going to take small chunks out of the support at a time until we get the model freed from the support. And then we're going to start taking away small chunks until we get relatively close to flush. Then I'm going to take either my X-Acto knife or my file and smooth the area down. It's also super important to note here that resin dust can be extremely toxic and you don't want to be breathing this stuff in. So make sure you're wearing a mask of some sort. Now, as part of the casting process, most manufacturers will apply a release agent to their molds. This makes sure that they don't damage their molds when they're trying to demold your model, and they don't damage your model in the process. However, this does leave a residue on all of your bits. And if we don't take care of this residue, all of the hard work of painting the miniature is going to be for nothing, because you're going to be able to rub it off with just your finger. So we have to make sure we clean this residue off. The way to do this is just get a small container, fill it with water and a couple drops of soap. Then we just take a toothbrush and scrub it all away, and make sure you get into all the little nooks and crannies. Make sure when you do this your water is warm but not too hot, because hot is going to heat up your resin and it's going to become malleable, and you may misshape it and it'll become difficult to assemble it later. I also make sure to leave some of my smaller pieces still attached to their supports, that way I don't lose them. It's going to be easy enough to just clip them off, clean them up, and glue them on later. Now, if you've been working with plastic miniatures for a while, you've probably come to realize that plastic cement is far superior to super glue. However, resin, as the name implies, is not plastic. So plastic glue isn't going to work here. So super glue is the best option for assembling our resin miniatures. Make sure, however, you get thick super glue, oftentimes called gap-filling super glue, as this is going to be a lot easier to work with. Thin super glue is way too runny, and it's going to cover your model, and oftentimes you're going to end up gluing yourself to it, and that's not any fun. Pinning is also a process you should familiarize yourself with when assembling models. This is just the act of drilling a hole into two bits and inserting a piece of brass rod to add extra support, make sure your super glue doesn't fall apart. For Smaug, however, most of the bits kind of have pins already cast into them, so I won't be doing any of that. It's just a simple matter of applying the super glue and putting the pieces together. Make sure, however, that you dry fit everything first, so you know how it goes together and that it fits properly, and you cleaned up all your flash. So now that everything has been glued together, you're probably noticing some pretty massive gaps, and all your seams are probably very noticeable. Not to worry, we're about to fix that. Gaps can be filled with a variety of things. Today I'm going to be using 2-part epoxy. I prefer Milliput for this, however you might like green stuff. That is going to be for the largest of the gaps. So between the wings, a couple of spots on the neck, and all we're going to do for that is mix up our putty, roll it out into a little snake, and shove it in there. Once our putty is shoved into our gaps, we're just going to take a nice sculpting tool and smooth it out. After we've done all the big gaps, we're going to be left with a couple of smaller seams that it's going to be difficult to put putty into. For this, I use Spruugu. If you want to learn a little bit more about what exactly Spruugu is, I'll leave a link in the description to Vince Venturella's video about it. Essentially, it's just plastic cement with some chunks of leftover plastic sprue dissolved into it. This stuff works better on plastic miniatures as it will melt down into the miniature if it's plastic, but we can still make it work here. We're just going to paint it over all of our seams, and then when it dries, we can sand it down or scrape it back with our X-Acto knife and reapply it if necessary. So with that done, we're finally finished assembling our miniature. I hope you guys were able to learn something here, and I hope to see you guys in chat on Monday when I go back to painting this monstrosity. We had a very good time last week, and I'm looking forward to talking with you guys all again. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you will click like and subscribe to appease the algorithm gods. And if you really want to gain their favor, head on over to my website, hobbygoblinstudios.com, and check out some of my other work, and maybe send me an inquiry about a commission. And until next time, guys, keep on crafting!